The morning after my 18th birthday, I woke up thinking my life had just become full of possibilities. By that afternoon, my parents were sitting across from me at our kitchen table, insisting that my future belonged to them. My name is Mia Lawson. I was a high school senior when my grandmother gave me $100,000 for college on my 18th birthday. The next day, my parents demanded I be a good daughter and hand it over. They thought they were entitled to the money because families sacrifices together. What they didn't know was that my grandma had been planning for this moment for years, and she had left me more than just a college fund. She'd left me a way out. The birthday gift, that changed everything. My 18th birthday wasn't supposed to be a big deal. We couldn't afford big deals. My parents did the usual, a store-bought cake, a slightly forced chorus of happy birthday in our cramped kitchen, a card with $20 bills from my younger brother, Jonah, who kept saying, "Sorry, it's not more." I hugged him and meant it when I said, "This is perfect." The real celebration came later, at my grandma's apartment. My grandmother, Evelyn Brooks, lived in a small 2-bedroom unit above a laundromat on Maple Street. It always smelled faintly of fabric softener and lavender candle wax. She'd been there since my grandpa died 10 years earlier. We called it Grandma's Nest. I'd spent half my childhood there whenever my parents needed space or had to work late. Grandma's Nest had seen more of my homework, my tears, and my secrets than our actual house. That evening, after my parents dropped me off with quick, distracted hugs, they were meeting some friends about a business opportunity. Grandma set a plate of my favorite lemon bars on the coffee table and lit 2 more candles than she needed. "For the extra wishes you'll need," she said, winking. We ate, talked, watched an old movie on TV. In the last 20 minutes of the film, she muted the sound. "Mia," she said, turning toward me on the couch, her gray hair pulled back in its usual low bun. "I've been waiting for this day since the day you were born." "That's a long time to plan a birthday party," I joked. She smiled, but there was something serious in her eyes. "I'm not talking about cake," she said. "I'm talking about choices." She reached under the coffee table and pulled out a plain, white envelope. My name was written on it in her careful script. Mia Grace Lawson. It read. My stomach fluttered. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it," she said. Inside was another envelope, this one from a bank, thicker, more official looking, and a letter. I unfolded the letter first. "Dear Mia," it began. "If you're reading this, you are 18, and I am either sitting beside you making sure you read every word, or I'm gone and someone else is doing the nagging for me." I smiled despite the tightness in my chest. First, it said, "I need you to know how proud I am of you, of the way you have grown up in a storm and still found ways to be kind. You deserved more stability than life gave you. This is my small attempt to give you some back." I looked up at her. "Grandma," I said softly. She nodded toward the letter. "Keep reading," she said. Second, the letter went on. "This envelope contains documentation of an education trust one set up when you were 5. Every extra dollar I could spare since then has gone into it. You will see numbers that might make your head spin. Breathe. It is real." My hands shook as I opened the bank envelope. There it was. Balance, $102,374.26. A college education in black and white. I stared at the digits until they blurred. I don't understand." I whispered. "How?" "I married a stubborn man who insisted we buy our house instead of rent, even when it meant eating beans and rice 3 nights a week," she said. "When he died, the house was paid off. I sold it, moved here, and invested what I didn't need for myself. I've been adding to your fund every year. Not much, but over time." She shrugged like she hadn't just placed a universe in my lap. "You never told me I said. If I had, you would have told your parents, she replied calmly. And if your parents had known, they would have spent the next decade figuring out how to get their hands on it. I looked down at the paper again. This is for college. I asked, my voice tiny. It is for your education and starting your adult life, she said. Tuition, books, maybe a few months' rent if financial aid is slow. It is not, she added pointedly, for paying off your father's credit cards or investing in your mother's latest can't-miss business scheme. Guilt prickled at me even before she finished speaking. That's harsh, I said automatically. They're trying. She snorted. They're trying every get-rich-quick trick in the book, except the one that works, she said. Honest work over time. I flinched. Grandma, they love me, I said. They just struggle. Her face softened. I have never doubted that your parents love you, she said. Love and responsibility are different things. She tapped the trust document. This money is my responsibility to you, she said. Not to them. She pulled another sheet from the envelope. I set it up as a trust in your name, she explained. It is managed by the bank. You are the sole beneficiary. Your parents have no legal access. No one does, except you and, in some circumstances, the trustee. I'm currently the trustee, but if I'm not here, it passes to a lawyer I trust who understands exactly what I want. The bank manager? I guessed. She shook her head. A woman named Sarah Rivera, she said. She helped me set this up years ago. Her card is in there. If anything smells funny, you call her. If anyone pressures you, you call her. If your parents show up with tears and stories and papers they say you should sign, you call her before you lift a pen. I swallowed. That seems extreme. I said, they're my parents. They are human, she corrected. Humans under stress do desperate things. Your parents have been under stress since before you were born. She reached out and took my hand. I know you, Mia, she said. You are generous to a fault. You would sell the shoes off your feet if you thought it would help someone. That's a beautiful quality. It's also dangerous when the people asking are standing on your neck and calling it a ride. She squeezed my fingers. I am not giving you this money for you to be noble, she said. I am giving it to you so you can climb out of the hole your parents keep digging. Tears pricked my eyes. You think that's what they're doing? I asked. Digging a hole. I think they keep hoping the next shovel full will be made of gold, she said dryly. But hope does not pay interest. This does. She leaned back. Look at me, she said. I did. You owe them love, she said gently. You owe them respect as far as they have earned it. You do not owe them your future. She let that sit. Then, with a lighter tone, she added, also, I'd like to die without worrying that my granddaughter will end up 60 and exhausted like me, still picking up other people's messes. Don't talk about dying, I said, voice breaking. We all do, she said. We just don't all get to leave something helpful behind. She picked up the trust papers, tapped them into a neat stack, and slid them back into the envelope. I am asking you for one promise, she said. I nodded, swiping at my cheeks. Promise me you will not give this away, she said. Not even to me if I waltz in here tomorrow with a sad story. It is yours. It is for your education. That's it. I promise, I whispered. Say it like you mean it, she said. I promise I will not give this away. I said more firmly. It's for my education. That's it. She smiled. Good, she said. Now, let's talk about which colleges you actually want to apply to. Now that cost just became a little less scary. We stayed up past midnight, brochures and websites spread across the coffee table, dreaming. For the first time, those dreams felt like more than fantasies. I walked home that night with the envelope tucked under my coat, heart light and heavy at once. I had no idea how fast that weight would double. 3, the morning after, Family meeting. My parents picked me up from Grandma's apartment the next morning. My mother honked twice, impatient, while my father texted from the driver's seat. "We're here." I hugged Grandma. "Did you sleep on it?" she asked. "I barely slept," I admitted, in a good way. She searched my face. "Remember what we talked about?" She said. "You don't owe anyone the details yet. Not even them." "I know," I said, though part of me squirmed at the idea of keeping a secret of this size. She kissed my forehead. "Happy adulthood, baby," she said. "Now go see what they want. And call me later." I slid into the back seat of our aging Corolla. My mom, Carla, turned and flashed a wide, too bright smile. "Sleep well at Grandma's?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "We watched old movies." My dad, Jason, pulled away from the curb. "We need to talk when we get home," he said, eyes on the road. "Family meeting." My stomach tightened. "About what?" I asked. "You'll see," my mother said, patting my knee. "It's not bad. Just grown-up stuff." Grown-up stuff in my house usually meant money, bills, debt collectors, opportunities that needed just a little seed cash. We'd had a lot of family meetings like that over the years. This one was different. They didn't even let me take off my coat. "Sit," my dad said, pointing to a chair at the kitchen table. He and Mom took the chairs opposite. The envelope was burning a hole in my inside pocket. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Mom folded her hands on the table. "We talked to your grandmother last night," she said. My heart lurched. "About what?" I asked. Dad leaned back, crossing his arms. "About the little surprise she gave you," he said. "About the money." My hand flew to my pocket before I could stop myself. "How did she tell you?" I stammered. Mom rolled her eyes. "Of course she told us," she said. "Did you think she'd just move that kind of money around without letting your parents know?" My cheeks burned. "I didn't expect her to tell you right away," I said carefully. "She wanted to give me time to—" "To what?" Dad cut in. "To run off and blow it on some art school scam." I flinched. "I'm not blowing anything," I said. "It's for college." That's what she said. Mom sighed dramatically. "And we agree that college is important," she said. "But we also have to look at the bigger picture." I hated that phrase. The bigger picture had always meant our immediate crisis matters more than your plans. Dad steepled his fingers. "We've been honest with you, Mia," he said. "We're behind. On the mortgage, on the car, on some other obligations. We've been doing everything we can, but the economy is garbage and things happen. Things like his failed mobile car wash business, like the second mortgage they took out just until the market recovers, like Mom's wellness products, inventory gathering dust in the garage. Your grandma knows this," Mom added. "She knows we've been struggling. She also knows we can't qualify for traditional loans because of circumstances. Because your credit is shot," I said before I could stop myself. Dad's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone," he snapped. "We didn't get here by ourselves. We got here raising you, feeding you, keeping a roof over your head. You think electricity is free. Guilt pressed down on me. I'm not saying you didn't do those things," I said. "I'm grateful. But what does that have to do with Grandma's gift?" Mom smiled, a patient, patronizing smile. "Everything," she said. She and I talked and agreed that the money shouldn't just sit there in some account while the family drowns. She only put it in your name because she couldn't do it directly for us without tax headaches. But it's meant for all of us. My breath caught. "That's not what she told me," I said quietly. "What did she tell you?" Dad demanded. "That it was for my education," I said. "For college. For starting my life without being buried in debt." Mom waved a hand. "And it will be," she said, "once we've stabilized things." She and I agreed that the first step is to catch up on the mortgage and consolidate some of our higher interest debt. That way we don't lose the house out from under all of us. She said that. I asked, doubt creeping in. Mom hesitated just a beat too long. She implied it. She said families help each other, and that she trusts you to do the right thing. Dad leaned in. We're not asking you to give it all away, he said. We just need you to move most of it into a joint account we can access. We'll pay what needs paying, invest somewhere we know it'll grow, and leave enough for your tuition at state school. State school, I echoed. You don't need some fancy out-of-state place, he said. Waste of money. You can get a perfectly good degree here and live at home. That way the money goes further. My head spun. My grandmother's words echoed. Promise me you will not give this away, even if I waltz in here tomorrow with a sad story. I looked at my parents, faces I'd known my whole life, faces etched now with stress and expectation. Grandma told me something different. I said slowly. She told me she set it up so only I could access it, that it was protected for college, that she didn't want it used for anything else. Dad scoffed. Of course she'd say that, he said. She doesn't understand what it takes to run a household these days. She hasn't had kids under her roof in decades. She literally raised me half the time, I said, and she supported you when Dad lost his job. You lived with her for 6 months. Exactly, Mom said. She knows what it means to be there for family. Now it's your turn. Tears pricked my eyes. You're asking me to choose between paying for my education and bailing you out, I said. That's not fair. Dad's face hardened. What's not fair is us sacrificing for 18 years and then watching you sit on a pile of money while the bank takes our house, he said. Where do you think you're going to live if that happens? Huh, you think your grandma's little trust fund gives you a free pass? I swallowed. My education isn't a free pass, I said. It's my way of not being stuck in this same hole forever. Mom's voice softened, hitting a different note. Honey, no one is saying you won't go to college, she said. We're just saying you don't need all of it for that. Think about it. Your brother is only 15. He might want to go to college too. Is it fair for you to hoard everything while he has nothing? Hoard. The word stung. This isn't about Jonah, I said. I'd happily help him with applications, scholarships, whatever. Grandma would too. But this money, she made it clear she'd thought about this. For years. Don't you dare hide behind an old woman's intent, Dad snapped. She doesn't understand our reality. She understands more than you think, I said quietly. We stared at each other. Finally, Mom exhaled, switching tactics again. Look, she said, we can argue all day, or we can be practical. The bank will need your signature to move the funds anyway. Just come with us tomorrow. We'll talk to the manager, get everything set up in a way that works for everyone. Okay? No, I said. The word surprised all three of us. What did you say? Dad asked slowly. No, I repeated louder. I'm not signing anything until I talk to Grandma again, and maybe to a lawyer. Mom laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. A lawyer, she said. Mia, it's us. Your parents. We're not strangers on the street. No, I said again. You're not. Which is exactly why Grandma set it up this way. Dad slammed his palm on the table. You ungrateful, he began. Jason, Mom snapped, grabbing his arm. To me, she said, we're not going to force you, but you need to think very hard about the consequences of this decision. We can't help you with school if you won't help us with the house. Scholarships and aid only go so far. Don't come crying to us later when you're drowning in loans because you insisted on playing hardball now. I pushed my chair back. I'll keep that in mind, I said, my voice shaking but firm. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need some air. I went to my room, closed the door, and slid down it to the floor. The envelope felt heavy in my pocket. I pulled out the second card Grandma had slipped in, a plain business card with Sarah Rivera, ESQ printed in simple black letters. On the back was a handwritten note. If they pressure you, call her. She knows what I wanted. My hands still shaking, I dialed the number. For meeting the lawyer Grandma chose. Sarah Rivera's office was above a bakery 3 blocks from my school. I'd passed the door 100 times and never noticed it. Rivera and Associates, Family and Estate Law, the frosted glass read. I half expected her to be stern and gray, like the lawyers in TV dramas. She wasn't. She was in her late 30s, with dark curly hair pulled back in a low bun, simple gold hoops in her ears, and a navy blazer over a soft white top. Her office smelled like coffee and cinnamon from the bakery downstairs. "Mia," she said, standing to shake my hand. "I've been expecting your call. Your grandmother warned me you might need me sooner than she'd hoped." That made my chest tighten. "She told you?" I asked. "About the money?" She told me about her concerns, Sarah said, sitting and gesturing for me to do the same. "About your parents' financial habits. About your habit of feeling responsible for everyone. She wanted to make sure the plan she put in place would protect you, not just from creditors, but from guilt." I looked down at my hands. "She gave me these," I said, passing her the trust documents and Grandma's letter. She scanned them quickly, nodding. Evelyn was smart, she said. She set up a 529 education trust and a custodial account that converted to your name at 18. She named herself as trustee, then me as successor trustee if she became incapacitated or died. She was very clear. The funds are to be used for your post-secondary education and directly related expenses. Period. "Can my parents touch it?" I asked. "No," she said. "Legally, they have no rights to these funds. As a beneficiary, you can request disbursements for eligible expenses, tuition, fees, books, maybe some housing depending on the school. As trustee, I approve those. What you cannot do is simply move the full amount into a checking account and hand it to your parents without breaking the terms of the trust." Guilt pricked again. "What happens if I do?" I asked. "Technically, as trustee, if I knew you were misusing the funds, I'd be obligated to intervene." She said, "Worst case, you could face tax penalties and lose the protection these accounts give you from your parents' creditors." I blinked. "Wait," I said, "protection from creditors?" She nodded. "Right now, because of how these accounts are structured, they are not accessible in bankruptcy or in most debt collection actions against your parents," she said. "If they managed to coerce you into moving the funds into a joint account, those protections would vanish. A creditor with a judgment against them could seize that money. So could the IRS if they owe back taxes." My stomach dropped. Grandma thought of that. I asked. She smiled faintly. "Your grandmother spent a lot of time in my office," she said. "She didn't want to leave you a pile of cash that would become a magnet for everyone else's mistakes. She wanted to leave you a door." I exhaled shakily. "They said she agreed it should be used for the family." I said, "that she told them I should help." Sarah's eyebrows climbed. "She told me the opposite. She said that she expected them to guilt you, and that she wanted you to have a legal wall you could hide behind if needed." She leaned forward. "Here's the thing, Mia," she said. "Your parents can ask. They can cry. They can argue morality. They cannot force you. And if they try to trick the bank into giving them access, the bank is obligated to call the trustee, you or me, depending on the account, and verify. As long as you don't sign anything, they have no path." "What if they forge my name?" I asked quietly, thinking of the way my father had once signed my mom's name on a credit card application because she was busy. "Then they commit fraud," she said, "and the bank's security cameras and signature cards will help us make that case. But don't jump to that fear yet. Start with boundaries. I sighed. They said if I don't help, they can't help me with school. I said that I'll end up drowning in loans. Will they help you with school if you do help? She asked. Honestly, I thought about my parents' history, the promises. As soon as we get back on our feet, that never came. I shook my head. I don't think they can, I admitted, even if they wanted to. Exactly, she said. So, you'd be giving up a sure thing for a maybe. For people who are not known for following through. That hurt, because it was true. What do? I asked. Just tell them no, over and over. That's part of it, she said. But you don't have to do it alone. If they insist on involving the bank, you can tell them, okay, let's schedule a meeting with the manager and with my trustee. Then you call me. I'll sit in that meeting. I'll explain the legal limitations. It's harder to argue with a stranger in a blazer than with your kid. I laughed weakly. Won't they be mad? I asked. Oh, yes, she said. Probably. But anger is survivable. Student loan debt is not easy to shake. She handed back the documents. Your grandmother did her part, she said. Now you have to do yours, which is to remember that protecting this fund is not the same as betraying your parents. It's honoring the sacrifice she made and giving yourself a chance at a life where you're not having the same conversation from the other side of the table in 20 years. I nodded. Okay, I said. I'll try. Good, she said. And if they show up waving papers, call me before you even read them. Okay, I said. As I left her office, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Mom, we booked an appointment with Harborview tomorrow at 3 to get things sorted out. Hope you've had time to cool off and think clearly. We are all counting on you to do the right thing. Red heart. I stared at it. Then I forwarded it to Sarah with a single line. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Can you come? Her reply came within a minute. Sarah, I'll be there. Tell them your lawyer insisted. 5. The bank meeting, family money. Harborview Bank's manager, Mr. Lee, looked surprised when Sarah and I walked into his branch together. Ms. Rivera, he said, nice to see you again. And you must be Mia. Yes, I said, shaking his hand. My parents were already there, sitting stiffly in plastic chairs near his office. Mom's eyes widened when she saw Sarah. What is she doing here? She hissed under her breath as we approached. Mia, this is a family matter, not a court case. You asked me to come to the bank, I said. My trustee comes to bank meetings that involve my trust. Dad's jaw tensed. This is ridiculous, he muttered. We don't need a referee. That's where we disagree, Sarah said smoothly. Good afternoon, Mr. Lee. I was involved in setting up Miss Lawson's education trust with Ms. Brooks. I understand there's been a request to alter access. Mr. Lee nodded, glancing between us. Yes, he said carefully. Your parents came yesterday to inquire about adding themselves as co-owners to one of Mia's accounts. Because of the account type and flags on the profile, we informed them we'd need the primary beneficiary and trustee present for any changes. And here we are, Sarah said. We went into his glass-walled office. My parents sat on one side of the desk. Sarah and I sat on the other. Mr. Lee pulled up the account on his screen. Mrs. Lawson, Mr. Lawson, he said, I want to be clear from the outset. This 529 Education Trust and custodial account are in Mia's name, with Ms. Brooks as original trustee and Ms. Rivera as successor. They are not joint family assets in the way a shared checking account would be. Dad chuckled. With respect, he said, when that money was saved, Mia was a child. Evelyn did that as a grandmother. For the family, it's only right that now, when the family is in trouble, the family can use it. Mr. Lee glanced at Sarah. Legally, he said, the funds belong to the trust for the benefit of Mia. They are restricted in use by the terms of the trust agreement. I can't simply add names because you'd like to consolidate debts. Mom leaned forward, smile tight. We're not monsters, she said. We're not trying to steal from our own child. We just need to use the money in a smarter way. We'll still send her to college. With what? Sarah asked calmly. You've just admitted you're in significant debt. Mom flushed. That's not what I said. She snapped. I said we're behind. There's a difference. Dad pinched the bridge of his nose, exhaling through his teeth. Look, he said, we're not here to argue semantics. We're here to make a plan. We want to pay down the highest interest debts, refinance the house, and use what's left for Mia's education. That is, using it for her benefit. Keeping a roof over her head benefits her. Sarah folded her hands. She will not be living in your house in 4 years, she said. She'll be at university. That's the point of this trust. The house, your debts, those are your responsibility. My mother's eyes flashed. You're turning our own daughter against us, she said. Evelyn always liked to meddle, but this is beyond the grave, through a lawyer. It's sick. Sarah didn't flinch. Evelyn asked me to protect Mia's interest, she said. That's what I'm doing. She turned to me. Mia, she said, why don't you tell Mr. Lee what you want? 3 sets of eyes landed on me. I swallowed. I want to go to college, I said, without drowning in debt. Grandma saved this money for that. She was very clear. I don't want to add anyone else to the account. I don't want to move it. I want it to stay exactly where it is until I need it for tuition. Dad stared. You're really going to do this? He asked. Let us lose everything we've built because you're clinging to some old woman's paperwork. I flinched at his choice of words. Mr. Lee shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Lawson, he said, with respect, your mortgage and other debts are separate from this account. We can discuss hardship programs or payment plans for those in another meeting. But this trust is not a lever we can legally pull to solve that. Mom's mouth trembled. What about Jonah? She said, voice wobbling. Does he not deserve a chance to? Or does Grandma only care about the firstborn? My chest tightened. I care about Jonah, I said immediately. I want him to have options too. But taking this money now doesn't magically create more later. It just means both of us have less. Sarah nodded. And if Mia chooses to help Jonah with books or fees down the line, that's her call, she said. Not yours. Dad's face went red. This is outrageous, he said. We bathed you, Mia. We fed you. We stayed up with you when you had the flu. How dare you sit there and talk to us like we're strangers trying to scam you? I met his gaze. How dare you sit here and treat my future like a piggy bank you're owed? I said quietly, I didn't ask you to have me. I was the child. You were the adults. Those 18 years, that was your job. Mom's mouth fell open. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't believe you, she whispered. I can't believe my own daughter would throw our sacrifices back in our faces. Guilt stabbed me, but beneath it, something solid had started to form. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. This is a copy of the relevant section of the trust, she said, sliding it toward my parents. You're welcome to read it. You're also welcome to have it reviewed by your own counsel. But the bottom line is this. You have no authority over these funds. Any attempt to forge Mia's signature or misrepresent your identity to gain access will be taken seriously by this bank and by me as trustee. Mr. Lee nodded. Harborview has strict fraud protocols, he said. We do not take lightly any attempt to circumvent account restrictions. And we have cameras. The implication hung there. My parents stiffened. We're not criminals, Dad said through gritted teeth. Then don't behave like them, Sarah replied. We sat in brittle silence for several seconds. Finally, Dad stood abruptly. This was a mistake, he said, scoffing. We thought we were talking to family. Turns out we're talking to strangers hiding behind legalese. He grasped Mom's arm. Let's go, he said. Enjoy your fancy college, Mia. Don't call us when the real world chews you up. Mom let herself be pulled up, but as they passed me, she paused. I hope that diploma keeps you warm when you have no family left, she whispered. It was a cruel thing to say. It also turned out not to be true. They stormed out. The glass doors swung shut behind them. The bank lobby buzzed on, oblivious. I sat there, heart pounding, feeling like I'd just torn something vital. Sarah placed a hand, lightly, on my forearm. You did well, she said. It doesn't feel like it. I choked. That's what boundaries feel like at first, she said. Like loss. Sometimes you find out later they were the start of something better. 6. College, choices, and consequences. My parents didn't talk to me for 3 weeks after that. No texts, no calls. No, what are your Christmas plans? Or how are your applications going? Silence. I focused on school, on final exams, on essays, on filling out FAFSA forms and scholarship applications despite having the trust. I chose a state university 3 hours away, far enough to feel like a new world, close enough that if Grandma needed me, I could get to her. When the acceptance email came, I ran straight to Grandma's apartment. She hugged me so tightly I squeaked. I knew you would, she said. Evelyn doesn't put her money on slouches. Grandma, I groaned, laughing. She stepped back, serious again. Your parents, she asked. They're not thrilled, I said carefully. They wanted me to stay home. Use just a little for classes here and help them catch up. Her eyes hardened. I gave them chances, she said, more than they deserved. This one is for you. She glanced toward her small desk. I also updated my will, she said. I left them a little, so they can't say I disinherited them out of spite. But you and Jonah have what matters. My stomach flipped. You left Jonah something? I asked. I left Jonah a separate, smaller trust, she said, for when he's 18. Different structure, less vulnerable to being guilt-tripped out of it if you're not around to coach him. She paused. I am not doing this because I love him more or you more, she said. I'm doing it because I've watched the two of you grow up in the same house and be treated very differently. He was allowed to be the baby. You were required to be the extra parent. This is me saying, I saw that. Tears blurred my vision. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say, you'll use what I gave you. She said that you'll go to class and to office hours and make friends who know you as Mia, not as the one who fixes things at home. I will, I said, and if one day, when you're stable, you choose to help Jonah, she added, that will be a gift from you, not from the past. That difference matters. I nodded. Moving to campus felt like stepping onto another planet. My roommate, Hannah, had parents who sent care packages and asked about her professors, not about whether she'd heard back from the loan company yet. Her biggest worry was whether or not she'd picked the right major. Mine was keeping my phone on in case an unknown number turned out to be a hospital calling about Grandma or a debt collector finally tracking my parents to me. I paid tuition from the trust, with Sarah's help navigating disbursements. I worked part-time at the campus library not because I had to, but because I wanted extra money for things I'd never had growing up. A coffee that wasn't brewed at home, a sweatshirt from the bookstore, a train ticket to visit Grandma without begging for gas money. My parents never visited campus. They called occasionally. The conversations were stilted. How's school? Mom would ask. Good, I'd say. Busy. I got an A on my midterm. That's nice, she'd say. Listen, have you heard anything from Grandma lately? She hasn't picked up when I call. She says you usually only call when you need something, I said, regretting at the moment it left my mouth. She said that. Mom sounded hurt and furious. She implied it, I said. Maybe you could just call to say hi. The line would go icy. We're done with this conversation. She'd say, don't forget who changed your diapers. I started keeping the calls shorter. On winter break of my sophomore year, I came home to find an eviction notice taped to our old front door. Not Grandma's apartment. The house. The one I'd grown up in. The one my parents still lived in with Jonah. My heart clenched. I called Sarah. She sighed. I wondered when that would happen. She said, they've refinanced 3 times since your grandmother transferred the deed. There's no equity left. They're upside down on a house that was once paid off. What's going to happen to Jonah? I asked, panicked. He's 16, she said. Legally, your parents are responsible for housing him until he's 18. They may couch surf with family or end up in an apartment, but your trust isn't at risk, nor is your grandmother's will. It felt cruel, that logic. My brother's life was about to be uprooted, and I couldn't fix it, not without setting myself on fire. I met Jonah at the park that weekend. He kicked at the snow, shoulders hunched. They're saying we might have to move in with Aunt Denise. He muttered. She has room, but Mark hates her. Says she's a bad influence. How are you? I asked. He shrugged. Do you hate me? He blurted. For not standing up when they did that to you at the bank. I blinked. You were 15, I said. You were stuck in the same storm. It wasn't your job. They say you chose money over family, he said, not meeting my eyes. I sighed. I chose a chance to not repeat their life. I said, that doesn't mean I chose not to love them. Or you. He looked up, eyes red. Is it true Grandma left me something too? He asked quietly. I hesitated. I think she did. I said, but I don't know details. Sarah does. When you're 18, if I'm not around to bug you, call her. Promise me that. He nodded. Okay, he said. I promise. We sat in silence, watching our breath cloud the air. I'm sorry about the house, I said eventually. He shrugged again. It never felt like ours anyway, he said. It was one more thing they were always fighting about. His words hurt more than any of my parents' accusations, because they were honest. 7. Karma and quiet revenge. By the time I graduated, I had something none of the adults in my childhood ever had. A degree, no debt, and a sense that my decisions mattered more than other people's demands. I got a job as a junior designer at a small marketing firm in the city. I rented a tiny studio above a bookstore that smelled like dust and ink. I bought my own dishes, picked my own chair, chose where I sat. Grandma didn't live to see me walk across the stage. She died in my junior year, quietly, in her sleep. Her lawyer called the next morning. I cried in the shower, so my roommate wouldn't hear. At the reading of her will, everything unfolded as Sarah had described. My parents received small, fixed sums. They were offended. After everything we did for her, Mom muttered in the hallway, she leaves more to some hospital and to you than to her own daughter. I wanted to say, after everything she did for you. I didn't. Not then. Instead, I listened as Sarah read Grandma's letter aloud. My parents bristled at the line about entitlement. Jonah looked thoughtful. Later, he pulled me aside. She saw us, he said. Really saw us. Yeah, I said, voice thick. After the will was settled, my parents went back to scrambling. New jobs, new debts. Jonah moved in with a friend after graduation. He called me, not them, when his landlord tried to keep his whole security deposit. Can you help me read this lease? He asked. It sounds sneaky. We met at a cafe. I brought highlighters, channeling Grandma. We figured it out. I did help him with community college applications, with textbook money, with gas sometimes. Not from the trust, that was fully spent on my tuition and a modest grad certificate by then, but from my paycheck, from a place of abundance, not obligation. As for my parents, they tell people different versions of the story. To some, they say their daughter got brainwashed by a lawyer and stole the money. To others, they imply I won the lottery and abandoned them. The truth sits quietly in bank records and trust documents, and in the memory of a bank manager who remembers a girl who said no. I don't need to convince their audience. Karma, it turned out, didn't need me to orchestrate some grand, humiliating revenge. It just needed me to stop cushioning them from the consequences of their choices. 8. What my grandma actually gave me. My grandmother gave me $100,000 for college on my 18th birthday. That money paid for tuition, books, and cheap noodles in a dorm kitchen. It bought me time to intern at a real design studio instead of working double shifts at the mall. It kept me from signing away 30 years of my future on loan documents I barely understood. But that's not the most important thing she gave me. She gave me permission. Permission to see love and obligation as separate lines. Permission to question the script that says good children sacrifice everything for parents who won't sacrifice their cigarettes or their gambling or their pride. Permission to believe that I am allowed to climb out of a hole without hauling everyone who dug it onto my back. If you're listening to this as a young person, maybe with a small savings account or scholarship or unexpected windfall that everyone around you suddenly has ideas about, I hope my story lands like a note from someone who's been where you are. You are allowed to protect what was given to you for you. You are allowed to say no even when the person asking changed your diapers. You are allowed to believe that your future is not a tool to fix someone else's past. And if you're listening as a parent, angry on behalf of my parents, I hope you sit with that anger gently. Ask yourself, are you upset because you believe children owe their parents their assets? Or because you were never given the chance to choose your own path, and the idea that someone else might feels unfair? My grandma didn't hate my parents. She knew their stories, their traumas, their excuses. She loved them, flaws and all. She just refused to let their chaos write my ending. That was her revenge. Quiet, legal, boring, even. No screaming matches in bank lobbies. No viral videos. Just one envelope, one trust, one girl given the tools to say no. The morning after my 18th birthday, when my parents demanded I hand over the money my grandmother saved, it felt like the universe was asking me to choose between being a good daughter and a selfish person. I chose to be a good granddaughter instead. And in doing so, I finally became something else. A person with a future that belonged to me.